Hi and welcome to the channel. I'm Tim and this is Run Tall. If you're new here, welcome to the Run Tall family. I'm really glad that you are here and you found us on YouTube. I post running videos every single day. Running shoe reviews, comparisons, and shoe battles, but I like to post a lot of other videos that are related to running as well, like recovery and gear reviews. So if you're into that kind of thing, or maybe you're just looking for a daily dose of running, consider subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll be notified each time that I upload new content. Now in today's video, I've got the Adidas Boston 12s going up against the New Balance SuperComp Trainer V2s. Now just to start with, I did purchase both of these with my own money, so I have no financial bias. No one's paying me to make the video, no one's telling me what to say, and no one has an opportunity to preview my thoughts before I share them with you first here on YouTube. Now when it comes to cost, there is a difference. The Adidas Boston 12, it's going to cost you $160 US, while the New Balance SuperComp Trainer V2s, they're going to run you $180 US. Both of these are considered to be daily trainers, but they're falling in that super trainer category. And when we're talking about super trainers, they're really mimicking the big brother to these shoes, which would be like a marathon race day shoe with some type of tech within the midsole, and whether that's a carbon fiber plate or maybe some energy rods, whatever that might be. So these are designed to really give you that race day feel, but in a daily trainer package. So they do usually run a little bit more in terms of cost, and supposedly they're a bit more durable. But we're going to talk about that here as we go through this review. So let's just start with the Boston 12, the Adidas Boston 12. Now, these do have a mesh upper, an engineered mesh upper. It's lightweight, it's breathable, has a bit of a plastic feel to it. But I found these to be, pretty comfortable in terms of just, giving my feet an opportunity to breathe. The fit, they did fit as expected. I ordered both shoes true to size, which for me is a US men's size 9. And I felt like the length as well as the width across my midfoot was pretty much spot on for me. Didn't have any issues that way. Plenty of room up here to be able to splay my toes. So no fit issues, no hot spots. The padding around the heel collar and the tab is minimal. Now this is more of a race vibe to the padding that they have here, because they have a split style padding, bumper padding, and it's just on the side. So it's it's on the sides of the feet. There's nothing back in your Achilles at all. So let's take a look at the New Balance SuperComp Trainer V2, see how that stacks up. So here again, we have an engineered mesh upper. I would say that they're pretty equivalent in terms of breathability. Neither one just blew my socks off, so to speak, in terms of, feeling the air rushing through as I ran, but both did a decent job on hot weather, and it's been hot here. So both shoes have been put through their paces in warmer temperatures, which for me is, anywhere from 80 degrees Fahrenheit up to the mid 90s in some cases, and oftentimes in very humid weather. And I think they did a respectable job as a daily trainer, keeping me comfortable out on the run. Again, fit was spot on in terms of the length and width. I felt like I had plenty of room to be able to splay my toes. So on both shoes, I would just order my true to size. No need to go up or down. I think you're going to be pretty good with that. In terms of the padding around the heel collar and the tab, now here, these are a bit more traditional. So this is what you would typically find in a daily trainer. So lots of padding. I often call this, the pillow style, because it kind of rests up here around the collar of the shoe, and then it gently tapers down to the footbed. And then you have a pretty generous amount of padding back in the Achilles area as well. So it creates a nice heel pocket for your heel to set in. So as long as we're talking about fit, let's go ahead and talk about the heel cup just a little bit, because in the Boston 12, that's where there's a bit of an issue. Now, it didn't cause me any problems. It was just notable. And I think for some runners, though, it could be a much bigger deal. So because of the padding, I felt like my heel is always loose in this shoe. It hasn't caused any hot spots. I don't feel like my heel is really where the heel is causing me issues where I can't run in them at all. It's just an odd sensation not to feel basically anything on my heel when I'm running. So it is a bit odd that way. And I've done everything I can possibly think of to get my heel locked in, right? So I've, kicked my heel back, used a runner's knot, cinched those laces down, and still it seems to run loose. But again, I haven't had any blistering, haven't had any hot spots, don't feel like it slowed me down at all. It's just not something that I'm really accustomed to having so much room basically in that heel area. Now that's quite a bit different than in the SuperComp Trainer V2s. Here I felt very locked in the heel. I didn't have any heel slippage either up or down or side to side. I felt very secure in these shoes. But again, no hot spots, no real issues. It's just a very different sensation on foot. When you're used to feeling that your heel really locked into that heel cup and it's not, that can be a bit odd, or a bit, it might take you a little bit more to get used to it. All right, so let's take a look at the Eyelet Chain here. Now, there's a difference, quite a bit of difference between the Boston 12 and the SuperComp Trainer V2s. The Boston 12, they got a little bit cute, I think Adidas did, on their design of the Eyelet Chain. So you can see that there are no holes up here at all. So what they've done, and I've taken the insole out just so that you could see this a little bit better. So I'm going to try to get a good view here. So they actually have two layers of material. They have one layer that's sewed down into the footbed, and it wraps up and is sewed into the eyelet chain up here with the upper. And then your laces, rather than going through holes they're really relying on, or simply kind of going through those two layers of material. So basically you have some material that's sewed into the footbed. Your laces run between that material and the upper. And so when you draw it together, it kind of wraps around your foot. Well, it does an okay job. It's not, I don't think it's fantastic. I never felt like I was super snug, maybe across the midfoot section of the shoe, but it was okay. I didn't really have any issues with it. I just didn't feel like I was getting cinched down as well as I could maybe in other shoes like the SuperComp Trainer V2s. Now, with the SuperComp Trainer V2, they stuck with a basic eyelet chain, and I like that. I think simplicity works here in this case. The tongue here is gusseted, and that's a bit unlike the Boston 12, which is not gusseted. But I didn't have any issues getting cinched in and feel like I was really locked in and secure across the midfoot section of the shoe. So I started talking about the tongue. Let's take a look at that. So with the SuperComp Trainer V2, you can see that it is pretty thin, but I didn't really have any issues really in either shoe, feeling the laces cutting across the top of my midfoot. The only issue that I really had here with this style is that when I do cinch in the material to get locked in across that midfoot, the tongue material can bunch up a little bit, and that can cause some pain points, and I did have to stop on occasion to loosen it up and kind of flatten that tongue out. So even though it's gusseted, I still had a little bit of bunching there in the eyelet chain. Now, that could be just me because I do have flat feet, and they're a bit shallow, so they sit a bit lower, and they're not particularly wide. So all that translates to I don't take up a lot of volume in any running shoe. And so oftentimes I do have to cinch up the eyelet chain a bit more than other runners do. So if you have a more standard size foot in terms of width, or you have a tall arch, probably not going to have that type of an issue. But for me, because I don't take up as much room, I do tend to bunch that material up there on the tongue, and that did cause me, like I said, some pain points at times. Nothing that I wasn't able to finesse and get worked out, so not overly concerning, but it is something worth noting that from time to time I did have to stop and work on that issue. Now with the Boston 12, it's not gusseted, as you can see. Super thin, even thinner, I think, than what we found when they're in the SuperComp Trainer V2. There's a little bit of padding that runs up the center there. And this, too, is a tongue that I have to finesse. It does tend to want to roll in on itself. So my best advice, if you opt to buy Adidas Boston 12, is to take your time, loosen up the laces enough, tuck the tongue in, get it laying flat across your midfoot, and then cinch them up, and you'll be fine. I haven't had any issues. It just takes a little longer to finesse that tongue to lay flat. But then again, I had to do that with the New Balance SuperComp Trainer V2s as well. So, all right, so let's talk about the midsole on both of these shoes. So now with the Adidas Boston 12, you have two different types of foam. You have their Light Strike Pro foam on top, and then their Light Strike 2.0 on the bottom. And then embedded within that foam are their fiberglass energy rods. You have a lot of foam here. You have 37 millimeter stack height in the heel and 31.5 up into 4-foot for a 6.5 millimeter offset between your heel and your toe. When we look at the New Balance SuperComp Trainer V2s, similar in design, I guess. They have 40 millimeter stack height in the heel, 34 up into 4-foot, and then embedded within their foam is their carbon plate, which they call their Energy Arc. So they have a 6 millimeter offset. So you got 6.5 versus 6. You got energy rods versus a carbon plate. As long as we're talking about the ride of the shoe, one of the things that does impact the ride is the weight. They virtually weigh the same, right? So on my scales, the Boston 12 came in at 9.1 ounces, which would be 258 grams, while the New Balance SuperComp Trainer V2s came in at 9.2 ounces or 261 grams. So 3 grams difference, virtually no difference in the weight of these shoes. So that shouldn't be an issue if you were trying to decide which of these two to buy. So let's talk about the ride of these shoes. The Boston 12, they do well pretty much at all of your daily training tasks, as both shoes do, but they each have their own niche, I think, when it comes to the daily trainer. So depending on what you want to emphasize, and you only want to buy one shoe, that might impact which one you buy. With the Boston 12, I found these to be better, or I like them better doing my speed work. So whether I'm running intervals, maybe I'm doing a progression run, whatever the case might be, if I want to pick up the pace, I like the Boston 12. And the reason I like that is, not only is it a soft cushion ride, I really like that Light Strike Pro foam for the amount of energy return that gets, but I love those energy rods, and it gives you a bit of a snap off the toe. So it just makes me move through my gait cycle a little faster. They do well at slow paces, and so if you want to take these out on a long, easy run, you absolutely could. And I have, and they feel great. But I feel like I have to work maybe a little bit harder at their slower paces in the Boston 12 than I do in the SuperComp Trainer V2. So let's talk about the SuperComp Trainer V2. I just alluded to the fact that I like these for those slower or longer, easy runs. They're not my favorite for speed work. They do okay. But I like the bounce of the plate. So when you're landing, like I do on that midfoot of that carbon fiber plate, right at that arc, really, you just get a nice bounce. And that bounce helps me maintain a pretty steady pace for long periods of time. I found it pretty easy to do that in the New Balance SuperComp Trainer V2s. I didn't necessarily like them as much doing speed work. They did okay. If you choose to go with this shoe, you won't have any issues with that. Just know that, at least from my experience, I think they're more enjoyable for that longer, easy run than they are for speed work when I have other choices that I find to be a little bit more exciting to help me move through my gait just a little bit faster and snapping off the toe as opposed to kind of bouncing off of that carbon fiber plate. So for me, that's the difference in the ride of these two shoes. Let's turn them over and we'll take a look at the outsole. Now, it's worth noting at this point that I have about 47 miles in the Boston 12, and I have 102 miles in the New Balance SuperComp Trainer V2. So there is a difference in mileage. So let's flip them over. We'll take a look at the outsole, see how they're protecting the softer midsole foam that they have here. Lots of rubber here. They're using Continental rubber. And after 47 miles, looking really hard at this outsole rubber, I don't see any signs of wear at all. So I think these are going to be really durable. My prediction in terms of durability and overall how many miles I think I'm going to be able to get out of this shoe, I think it's going to be upwards around 400 miles. I think I'll be able to run in this shoe and enjoy the ride and have the midsole protected that entire time. But we'll see. Again, I'm only at 47 miles, so 400 miles is a ways off. So I'll do a 100-mile shoe review on these, and I'll give you a little bit more feedback as I run the miles up in them. So let's take a look at the New Balance SuperComp Trainer V2s. Flip these over. They've got lots of outsole rubber there to protect all of that fuel cell foam that they have. Unfortunately, it's just not doing a great job. It's wearing down really thin. So I did do a 100-mile shoe review on this once already, just recently. And I noted that where I tend to land is on my midfoot, as I've mentioned many times before. The outsole rubber is wore right down to almost nothing. It's almost paper thin now in the midfoot section of the shoe. So that outsole rubber is not holding up at all. It's even coming loose from that midsole foam. So unfortunately, my prediction of these is maybe 300 miles, maybe. After 100 miles, that outsole rubber is already paper thin, and I can see, I wouldn't be surprised if just when I get to 200, 250 miles, it's going to be down to showing that outsole or midsole, right through that outsole rubber. So 300, maybe. But we'll see. I'm sure I probably could still run in these, but once that midsole foam starts to get exposed, it's going to chew up pretty fast because with these super trainer shoes, they're using lighter material in the midsole foam, and it's softer and it's prone to some deterioration much quicker than the types of foam that they've been using in a more traditional daily trainer without all of that super tech that's embedded within the foams. So, all right. So having said all of that, you know what? I'm going to do one more thing because I've gotten this question before. I'm going to put it up on my shoulder and give it kind of the pinch test in the heel. So you've got just a little bit of structure back here in the heel. So it runs loose, and there's not a ton of structure back in the Boston 12 in the heel area. But again, I didn't really have any issues with that. Put the New Balance up on my shoulder, give that the pinch test. There's more structure, and it wraps around your heel a bit more. So if you're looking for a structured heel and you want that more secure, locked-in feeling in the heel, then obviously the SuperComp Trainer V2 is the way to go. So overall, the SuperComp Trainer V2 has a much better fitting upper. It's a lot more comfortable. I think it's easier to get locked in and secure within the shoe, have a nice heel lock in them. I think they're better at the slower, longer run paces than the Boston 12. The Boston 12, I think, is great at the more speed work. Now, both do good jobs accomplishing both of those tasks, so I don't think in terms of performance, you'd be disappointed if you picked up either shoe. But if you want to emphasize in your training block the speed sessions, I think the Boston 12 is the way to go because they're going to also do a good job on those long runs. If you want to emphasize the recovery run, the long run, then I think the SuperComp Trainer V2 is the way to go. You can still pick up the pace. It's probably just not as well or as easy for me as it is in other shoes like the Boston 12. In terms of which shoe would I buy again, I wouldn't buy this one again because it's falling apart. I'm just having trouble with that outsole rubber, and it's really disappointing when you pay $180 for a pair of daily trainer shoes. You expect them to go 300 miles at least, even with the softer midsole foam that they're using and the tech that's within the shoes or within that foam. So I would definitely buy the Boston 12 again. I think that it's a really good buy. It's $20 cheaper. It's going to do all of the same tasks for you, and it's going to excel at the speed work, whereas the SuperComp Trainer V2, it's just not going to last. I love it for those long runs. It's just you're not going to be able to get as many in them as you can, I think, in the Boston 12. All right, so this video went a little longer than expected, but hopefully you guys stuck with me to the end. If you did, thanks for making it to the end of the video. As always, run tall, run strong, depend on one another. Thanks for watching, and if you're a subscriber, I'll see you tomorrow.